Hi, I'm Steve Mills, a solutions engineer here at Oracle, and I have done a video on OCSAM, Oracle Communication Service Availability Machine, and I've presented from a technical point of view, and in the overview we really talked to this map of the deployment view, this map of compute assets that are brought together, NEPs hardware, carrier-grade middleware, to create an off-the-shelf black box, ready to go, pre-tested, pre-integrated environment, so that you have what we call an application-ready platform. You really focus in on your value add at the application level. Now, we've also done a video on, as we did a deep dive in the OCSA layer here, on availability management, where we talked about the mechanisms and where the integration points are for you, the system designer and application engineers, in terms of maintaining service availability. This particular video is really focused on system management, which is really these interfaces over here in terms of integration into your management solution somewhere over here. Now, here we've depicted some interfaces here, and we don't really know whether or not, for example, here you have integrated your applications with your application management. The other thing we don't really know is, how you partition your overall management solution. Perhaps you take all of these interfaces and integrate them into one monolithic management and report to an element manager where it can see the entire stack of instrumentation that's available in the entire system. Or perhaps you distinguish between platform management and really distinguish that from application management, which is, from your point of view, a distinct thing. So all that partitioning is really your design space in terms of how you've coped with that. For us to talk about these services, we're really going to pick on a reference implementation, which we depict over here as a management adapter. And that management adapter, roughly, if we just take a quick look at it, a brief tour before we dive into the details, is made up of you, the customer, who have some number of northbound interfaces. In this case, we show a command line interface, an SNMP agent that goes over a network to some element manager where there's an SNMP management capability, and a web-based secure web-based application over there, and others. NetConf, we don't know. Whatever you have as requirements for your presentation and for your management solution. Right below there is this translation layer where you, the customer, have provided all the logic it takes to transform the native syntax and semantics of the OCSAM management APIs and transform it into the nomenclature that is suitable for your northbound interfaces. And so that would be your responsibility in this reference implementation that we're depicting here. But where we come into the picture, where OCSAM comes into the picture, are these these interfaces here, which have clear syntax and semantics that are at your disposal to leverage in order to expose the nature and quality and quantity of information that you want to export northbound. Now, in fact, the amount of information that's visible through all of these interfaces is quite rich, quite detailed, and frankly, only some subset is actually required typically in any given management solution up here. So one of the orders of business that you'll be confronting is to first understand the various data points that are available to you, and then narrowing down the scope of which ones you'll actually use. But let's look into these interfaces and what happens below the surface of those various management APIs. CMM, or Chassis Management Module, is really running a protocol called ILOM, Integrated Lights Out Management, which is the means by which we go to the various service processors on the various field replaceable units, FRUs, and understand both the configuration and an inventory of the various parts that make up the system. Now, frankly, it's my belief that you probably won't have to do too much integration here, because, in fact, IMM, Information Model Management and Notification, is providing you a lot of the basic insights you're going to need for the hardware through its instrumentation and access to the PLM layer, the platform management layer. There, in PLM, as with CLM and ANF, as you may recall from our availability management services, is the information model, the system model, where some system designer has crafted the layout of all the objects and attributes that make up the system. And those objects and attributes are all visible and available through this IMM interface where you direct it. And the nature of the IMM interface is to basically support your basic gets and sets although they go by different names, of the various objects and attributes. Within the scope of that, especially in the context of the set operation, you have transaction semantics. So you can actually set up a request to set a collection of objects and the various attributes as a single transaction, and either it will be achieved as an atomic operation or it won't. So you have that guarantee that it's, when it's done, that it's completely done or not done at all. Within the notification service, this is the means by which, it's a publish-subscribe mechanism, it's the means by which you export, the middleware exports alarms and notifications. And so, for example, there's an alarm generated by AMF that indicates that the high availability state, the HA state of a particular service unit has transitioned, maybe from standby to active, and so through this translation layer you can generate a trap to indicate that there's been a failover in effect. Other notifications that come up through here that are really critical are various state changes that can occur within the middleware, or that a lock operation, effectively understand that a lock operation has occurred. So that's a very important interface, and if you go into the standards, the exact inventory of the alarms and notifications that will be generated are well documented and well understood. Finally, there's the log service, which allows you to have visibility. There's two immutable logs. There's the systems log and there's the alarm log. They will always exist, and this reflects all the alarms that have occurred in the system. And then you have the notion of an application logs, which there can be any number of, and those are really visible. There's a linkable library, as there are with all of these, so that you can, at an application level, open a log for your particular application and write to that log, and it will be maintained by the log service, where you can then harvest it as you see fit through the various log interfaces here. So, roughly speaking, you have to think, the customer, the system designer, have to think about your integration points here and understand the data flow that's possible over here. Cull it down to just the data points that you really want to expose northbound, and then from there, just expose those data points, those objects, and those attributes that are key to your overall solution. Now, it may be, as we said over here, that you have a management solution here for your particular applications, but perhaps you don't. Or perhaps you have some that you do and some that you don't. You also have the option over here to integrate to create objects with attributes and register them with the OCSAM layer in the IMM, so that it is aware of your particular management instrumentation in your applications, so that rather than here going through a proprietary or your private management interface to do the management of these various components, you in fact go through the IMM interface, and there, besides AMF, CLM, PLM, you would also have your application objects and attributes that you can access through here. And of course you also have a means by which your applications can generate notifications as well. So you have options there in terms of how much you exploit the OCSAM services. Do you simply use it to monitor the health and availability and the configuration of the middleware, or do you actually exploit it and use it as your mechanism for doing your own instrumentation for your own applications? So that's a brief overview of the management services, and in the next video, final video, we're going to look over the application services available to your embedded distributed system, so that they can better carry out the functions of what you want them to do in the context of an OCSAM environment. So thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next video.